I chose to get into medicine because of the desire to heal, to help. Forensic pathology aligns itself so much to dealing with human rights matters because it deals with trauma, death, violations, abuse, torture, all things which require legal accountability. I chose to do forensic pathology as a specialty because I wanted to be participating in righting the wrongs.
In the 22 years that Jammeh ruled the Gambia from 1994 to 2016, it was a country gripped by fear. Fear of abductions, torture, extrajudicial killing, disappearance, and fear of unlawful actions being meted out to civilians without any redress, impunity, so to speak.
The incident of 14th of April was the catalyst for a lot of the change that happened in the Gambia. Solo Sandeng was a member of the United Democratic Party. They were the opposition party at that point in time in 2016. And on that day, he had led a demonstration seeking, amongst other things, electoral reforms. And whilst they were there, they were arrested and taken straight to the headquarters of the National Intelligence Agency in Banjul. They were subjected to torture and beatings, which led to the death of Solo Sandeng and significant injuries to the others as well.
In the community, my father, he was known as this person that will give a helping hand anytime he is needed, regardless of who you are, what you represent, what political beliefs you have. He was very, very incredible.
Solo's death was seen as the galvanizing factor for the opposition to come together. And when that happened, it was as if the Gambian people, they forgot about all the fears that they were living under. And the people took their destiny into their own hands by voting Jammeh out of power. This government came into power on the back of a promise to deal with the human rights violations that are occurred in this country. If the government does not come out and really provide redress to these people, the Gambia could actually go to civil war.
If they happen to not be able to prosecute, not be able to give justice to the people, there's not going to be healing in the society.
So the case that we have in court is the prosecution of several NIA officers for the murder of Solo Sandeng and also for the grievous harm of several others. This trial kind of sets the stage for what would become ultimately what we call the New Gambia.
The first thing that the government did was to unearth the burial site where Solo was buried.
When we arrived at the scene, I knew there was also pressure on my side because everybody wants to know. His son and the brother were also standing by because we invited the family members. The police were there. So we found some remains totally decomposed. Yeah? So the skeletal remains were exhumed, put in the body bag, and then was taken to the teaching hospital.
And unfortunately, we didn't have the expertise in the Gambia to carry out the necessary forensic tests to determine identification, cause of death, which are very important elements that you need to prove in a criminal trial.
Of course, we consulted some foreign governments who deployed 1 or 2 experts to come here and take the forensic needs. Unfortunately, we could not get any positive identification report until the intervention of Justice Rapid Response, and that proved to be the game changer.
I'm Steve Naidoo. I'm a forensic pathologist, and I have been a forensic pathologist for over 30 years. I'm from South Africa, and I'm on the JRR roster for the last few years. I do feel connected to the distress and the despair that families of the missing and the bereaved undergo. I've lost a brother in the political casualties in South Africa. which we'd never found. When I got the call from JRR, I was told that there were 4 bodies that required autopsy examination and analysis. Our team arrived in Gambia. I was part of a team of 3. Myself, the forensic anthropologist, and a forensic geneticist. It was clear that it was particularly important that the cause of death was determined. Herein lies the challenge. The manifestations of torture are mainly on the skin and in the soft tissues. In a decomposed body, it's very difficult. So the quicker experts get onto the ground, the better it is for the entire investigation. But even the lack of soft tissues doesn't entirely obliterate evidence of torture. It can be still seen. One of the ways to do that would be to dry and examine the bones, individually looking for injuries and the full assembly together looking for missing remains. Then the nature of the trauma can be determined. The pattern of injury will betray the nature of the force, the direction of the force, and give you an indication of the soft tissue damage that would have been usually the cause of death. And in this particular case, we did have access to the audiovisual material that came from the investigation, and that showed clear evidence of the mechanism of injury. Reconciling that with the findings of the autopsy, we were able to confidently suggest the cause of death. What happens is that they lose a lot more blood into the subcutaneous tissue.
This is the first time we're actually going to this level of forensic expertise and getting the forensic analysis that's being done. And we couldn't have done it without JRR.
Just the injuries.
I think it's very important to actually have this trial happen in Gambia, being prosecuted by Gambians. Not only because the families and the victims can witness this happening, they can feel that they're actually getting justice. But also I think it's important in the longer term for people to understand that there's no more impunity.
We've been in touch with literally hundreds of organizations, but JRR has made the most impact. And given that the project is just starting, we expect the JRR to play a bigger role, especially when it comes to the forensic support capacity building that we are doing in this country.
The victims of April 14th are unfortunately just a minute number of the total number of victims we have. So I see this trial as the beginning. It's the test case. It's the first case addressing the torture and the killings that happened under the rule of Jammeh. So I think it is the start of what I hope to be many more prosecutions and many more opportunities for victims to actually tell their stories.
People suffered very well enough and they yearn for change because they want to stop their suffering and they want to see justice happen. Family members need closure, just like my family will have.
About the most important impact of the involvement of JRR in the Gambia is its reassurance to the general public, the Gambian people, that justice in fact is done. And when justice is done, it brings healing.